Hello and welcome to Ticker Estate, powered by our partners at the Double Shot Podcast, delving into real estate and investment bites for millennials, not just millennials, but mainly millennials. Cousins Alex and James Fitzgerald, hosts of the podcast, are under 35-year-old property professionals who've collectively transacted over $500 million of real estate and are investors themselves. It's great to have them both here with us. Welcome to you. Is that right? Did I get all of that right? Over $500 million? My goodness.
Nailed it.
Great to have you both. Hey, let's get into this. James, we'll start with you. What are you looking to achieve with these conversations that we're going to have over the coming weeks and months?
So I think we're just looking to educate people. There's a lot of people looking at property at the moment, buying their own home, maybe even investing. And I guess, there's some big mistakes that some people make. And some mistakes that Alex and I have made over the past few years as well. So hopefully we can save some people some time and heartache in the process.
Alex, how does that sound to you?
Look, I would probably completely agree. I mean, everything starts with education, essentially. So, James and I are quite passionate about that. We talk every week in our podcast. It's really just starting with the basics. Everyone fancies themselves as a little bit of an expert. Mum and dad have bought something, they've done well. But the reality is that some people make a little bit of money in real estate and some will make a lot. So we just want to start with education first and foremost.
Love it. And it's not just our viewers. I want to be educated here. I'm not currently in property, but I'm looking to learn. So by the end of this chat, I need properties. I need money. That's what I need.
We can't help you with money, Adrian. Chill out.
Sorry, I'm getting a bit excited. Anyway, each week on the Double Shot Podcast, Alex and James digest the key headlines relevant to business and investing with a lean toward the millennial perspective and a focus on how Australians can most effectively use real estate as their key investment strategy. Learn more at thedoubleshot.com.au. Good name too. Hey, who came up with that name, just to begin?
I think we both did, cuz. I don't know. We both love double or what?
James?
Alex is the creative brain. Alex is the creative brain.
Oh, right. That's a nice start. I thought you were, as cousins, I thought it was like, no, it was me. But you've been nice there.
Happy to give away, sharing the fame there.
I have other strengths. Very good. Okay, let's get into the way we're going to start each conversation is a bit of a news bite, something you've noticed. So what is trending this week on Ticker Estate? Alex, I might start with you.
Oh, the biggest thing to come out of this week is the preliminary auction clearance rates at just under 88%. Wow. This is massive. James and I have been following auction clearance rates, particularly through COVID. And now as we slingshot, yes, you're going to hear me say that. Cuz calls me slingshot. So we slingshot out the back of COVID and we're seeing this buyer FOMO. And on the weekend, Melbourne and Sydney collectively hitting an 88% preliminary clearance rate. Cuz if I'm not mistaken, we're at 80% last weekend. This weekend, 88%. But Melbourne went into stage 4 lockdown, took their 600 auctions online, all of them, and still collectively 88%. I mean, we are seeing buyer FOMO. It's truly incredible.
So James, tell us more, how surprised are you by some of those numbers?
I'm very surprised, particularly Melbourne. They got announced into lockdown on Friday, within 24 hours had moved all of their auctions to online and still managed to get a plus 80% clearance rate, which, to put that in perspective, about 60 to 70% is a balanced market. We like auctions because they're not the only number to look at when it comes to property, but they're the one number you can get almost every single week, which gives you an indication of the rolling sentiment week to week. And 60 to 70% being balanced. We've seen plus 80% since September in Melbourne and Sydney. The markets are just going crazy, which just goes to show there's a lot of confidence out there despite how uncertain things are at the moment.
All right, so that's what's trending so far. Now we get into our conversation. So let's start by talking about some of the biggest mistakes that property investors make. So there'd be a number, but maybe let's go with the number one. Is there a number one mistake that you make, Alex? I'll kick off with you.
Well, I guess the main thing here is when we talk about how high the auction clearance rates are and that there is this big flavour of property at the moment and this buyer FOMO, people have fear of missing out, they're bidding like crazy. It's really important to note that right now, some people can make a lot of money and some people will make mistakes and not make as much money. So it's important to note that not any property is going to give you growth and ultimately get you into a portfolio. I would say that the number one mistake is buying established properties, like older properties or apartments. I hate to say it, but as an investment prospect, not talking about your own home, that's a little bit different, but as an investment prospect, apartments, they've just got no growth.
James?
No, she's 100% right. I mean, the numbers are that only 90% of property investors, Adrian, own more. 90% of property investors only own one investment property. So we're talking 1 in 10 who own property own more than one. So a lot of people do get stuck on one. I think people are going to make a lot of money over the next 2-3 years. Just how much money you make and how well you can set yourself up and grow a portfolio will come down to sort of what you buy. And established property, and apartments, they just don't do as well as land in high growth areas. That's what we sort of tend to target. And the numbers are just, 1.5 to 2 times the performance of other properties when you're talking new land in high growth areas.
Let's talk about people's emotions. Of course, when we invest, people's emotions come in, particularly when it's property. We know that. So is this another mistake that we see, people choosing, through their emotions? What do you reckon?
Oh, I would definitely say, it's strip back the emotion completely.
No emotion.
No emotion. Emotionless. You are cold-hearted and you are an investing brain, right? Warren Buffett, channel Warren Buffett, best investor in the world. Strip away the emotion. If you're not going to live in it, you need to strip away the emotion. It'll push you to make bad decisions. So as we always hear in Australia growing up, location, location, location. No, it's all about numbers. Strip away location, location. Location matters, but it matters in the sense of numbers. What's this location population growth? What's the new infrastructure spend going in? Where are the jobs going? That kind of location. So strip away the emotion and try to think like a business person, because your property portfolio is going to be your own business essentially.
So what, James, with the emotions, why is that a mistake? Give us an example of when someone says, is it, oh, I like that property, I like the way it looks or whatever. Tell us more about what that actually looks like.
Yeah, so, I started in this business 10 years ago, and from about 2011 to 2014, Sydney was a market that was having a big increase in prices, grew by about 70 to 80% in a 2 to 3 year window. But if you actually study the numbers, the best performing suburb in all of this Greater Sydney region was a little known suburb called Edmondson Park. Most people think, it'd be the sexy suburbs like the Bondis or the DYs or, maybe even, North Sydney, North Shore.
Yep.
But if you actually study the numbers, it was Edmondson Park. Why? Because of exactly what Alex says, the numbers stripping out a little bit of emotion, if you can do that, numbers where it had the fastest growing population growth, it had all this brand new infrastructure being built, brand new town centre, brand new railway extensions, big highway upgrades, all these big projects which were making that population growth sustainable and creating jobs. And inevitably, that's what was causing the growth. It grew by more than 100%. So it outperformed it by 25, 30% of the rest of the Greater Sydney market.
So I've got a tally going here. I've got to count how many times Alex says slingshot. And James, now I've got the word sexy for you. So a little bit disturbed by that, but that's okay. So we'll see how many times you say sexy. But anyway, that's a side note. Just our final one. What about the idea of not having a strategy? I'll give you about 45 seconds on this one. That's another mistake we're seeing. Alex, what do you got?
This perfectly clicks into the first and second mistake that we mentioned. If you don't have a strategy, you're not going to be able to build an effective portfolio. And it seems that 90% of Australians don't have a strategy because they get basically handbraked at one and they can't duplicate. So I'm just going to summarize it. You need a strategy for cash flow and you need a strategy for growth. Your investment properties need to tick both of those boxes. So, we should probably lead into what we should do because we've told everyone what not to do, and that's a little bit negative. We don't normally sit on that side. We try to be optimistic.
That is how we learn, right?
Yes.
In a way, that can be how we learn. But all right, off you go. What should we do? Go. It's all open.
Well, first of all, buy land, as we said, in high growth areas. If you can get in an area that's 3 to 5 times the average population growth in Australia. So that's about 1.8% today. So if you can get somewhere 6, 8, 10% population growth per annum, good proximity to jobs and infrastructure, public infrastructure like roads and rail, but also private infrastructure like big office developments that are going to create jobs, and community infrastructure like hospitals, schools, universities. You really can't go wrong if you do that. It will make your returns sexy, Adrian.
Number 2, and there's a shudder down my spine. That's
Why are these property people saying the word sexy all the time? What's going on?
all right, Slingshot.
Okay.
What's our next point, number 2?
Slingers for short. You've got to build new. So James talked about buying land in high growth areas. Now, we're not talking about just buying a piece of land and then sort of like, see you later. You know, you might have a little organic, patch there. No, buy land in high growth and build brand new. Why do you build brand new? Well, number 1, you can maximize your tax. So many people don't know you can depreciate 100% of that house. Yes, over 40 years, but you can depreciate it from day 1 if you are the first owner. 2, maximize your income. You're going to get the best possible, highest rent for that. And 3, it can maximize your grants. As a first home buyer, or today in this market as an owner-occupier, you buy and build brand new, you've got the best grants and concessions available to you.
Nicely done. And James, just to wrap, let's talk more about our strategy. You know, we said that the point not to do is not have a strategy. So what can a strategy look like exactly?
Well, I'll give you an example. Last year, I'm committed to buying every 1 to 2 years or as often as I can. Now, to do that, sometimes you've got to be a little bit fluid to move. And biggest example I can give is not being so attached to your bank or your interest rate. So if you've got a strategy in mind, you can sort of keep a bit of a focus, I guess, on what you're trying to do. And the difference for me last year was I went and got 3 valuations done on the place that I live in, my own home, because I wanted to take out a little bit of equity. So the banks will lend you 80% of the property value. And if you owe less than that, you can take out the difference and use it as like a deposit on another property. And I had 3 valuers value the property within 5% of each other. Now, what does that mean? That could be the difference of me getting $40,000 or $0 out of my property to go and use as a deposit on buying another one. Now, if I was just focused on rate, unfortunately, I would have been stuck with the worst valuation. So I had to be a little bit flexible when it comes to, keeping an eye on what I'm trying to actually achieve.
And just to finish, guys, got about 1.5 minutes left. I mean, there's so much information there, which is amazing. Obviously, for people, it's a bit of work, right? So my last question to you is, how worth it is this? Following these steps, putting in the work, So Alex, you start in 20, 30 seconds. How worth it is it putting in this work?
Well, James and I are both doing it, so it's extremely worth it. But I think the best way that we can summarize it is, if you can effectively build a property portfolio, a real estate portfolio with land in high growth corridors, you can essentially have an asset that's working smarter for you whilst you go to work every day, so that you're not working harder. And your best friend in real estate is time. So it's very much worth it, because when you've always got time if you're a little bit patient. So work smarter, not harder. It's absolutely worth it.
James, sounds good to you?
No, sounds good. Look, Adrian, all I'd say in addition to that is probably one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is procrastinating or thinking I'll do it next year. So hardest part is just getting started. Just take that first step, approach someone who's knowledgeable, could be a friend, family member or a professional, but just make that first step and say, well, right, I'm just going to find out what exactly I can do.
Guys, great first episode. I learned plenty. I made a couple of good jokes as well, which was, it's pretty good.
You contributed.
I did contribute. Thank you. Guys, awesome stuff. We're going to do this every week, and we're going to learn plenty. Thanks so much for your time. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Ticker Estate, of course, powered by our partners at the Double Shot Podcast. What a name that is. I love the name. They delve into real estate and investment bites for millennials. Learn more at thedoubleshot.com.au. Catch you soon. Shot.
Get breaking news from Ticker direct to your mobile. There's a